1986 with intent of developing practical office software, and for the first couple of years that's exactly what they did. However, by the early 1990s, the focus of the company slowly shifted towards video game development. In late December of 1994, the company released their first title, known as King's Field. It was released exclusively in Japan on the PlayStation only 13 days after the console itself had been released. Just like most titles developed by From Software today, the gameplay of King's Field was extremely difficult and unforgiving. Due to how well the game was received in Japan, the company released a sequel in 1995 to an international audience. The game was yet again met with overall positive reviews. From Software would go on to build an immense catalog with many different types of titles with varying success, and with the release of Armored Core in 1997, they delved into the massive robot smashing other massive robots genre that is oh so popular in Japan, also known as mecha. It wasn't until 2009 that From Software truly returned to their roots and released Demon's Souls. In many ways, Demon's Souls is the spiritual successor to King's Field, with the most obvious difference being the new third-person perspective. Upon release, the game was well received by critics and was praised for its tense and ruthless gameplay as well as the unique integration of its online multiplayer mechanics. In 2011, the company released Dark Souls. Some believed the game to be a direct sequel to Demon's Souls, but as game director Hidetaka Miyazaki later explained, this is not the case. Just like Demon's Souls is the spiritual successor to King's Field, Dark Souls is the spiritual successor to Demon's Souls. Dark Souls was a huge success and was again praised for its brutal difficulty. In 2014, it spawned a sequel in the form of Dark Souls 2, and on the 12th of April 2016, the world was introduced to Dark Souls 3. In the first Dark Souls, most players will encounter a blacksmith known as Andre of Astora. He is a fairly unremarkable and minor character, and while he was absent from Dark Souls 2, he does make a return in the third installment. But there is one thing that makes him quite unique. He is one of the very few human characters in the entire franchise to actually move their mouth while they speak.
Oh, hello. I will teach you miracles.
Thou must returneth whence thou came.
Well, thou'rt exceeding lost indeed.
To be unkindled is to be a vessel for souls.
All right. It'll be just a moment.
We're not fit to lick their boots. The fast-fading flame must be licked.
I've already decided. I don't really care.
So, first of all, what's with the phobia for animated lips? Well, like most things in the Souls franchise, no one truly knows. Despite creative fan theories like undead telepathy, the lack of operational face cavities is most likely a very deliberate decision made by From Software to save time and resources. Okay, but what makes Andre so special then? Well, what we do know is that he initially served a far more important role in the story of the first game. He was supposed to be a descendant of Gwyn, possibly his son, whose task it was to protect a passage hidden behind the goddess statue in Firelink Shrine. The cutscene for the statue being moved is still hidden within the game files. But as development progressed, he was eventually downgraded to a simple blacksmith. The various blacksmith statues dispersed across the game world are actually the surviving remnants of this alternate storyline, so it's possible that, much like the statues, Andre's vocalized activity is merely a vestige of a tale that was never told. In an interview with a Japanese gaming website, game director Hidetaka Miyazaki explained that their initial intention was to make a direct sequel to Demon's Souls, simply called the Demon's Souls 2, but that various things prevented that from happening. So they decided to name the new game Dark Race. However, 2 days prior to the unveiling at the Tokyo Game Show in 2010, they realized that the name could have certain racial connotations, so the game was publicly revealed as Project Dark. The next idea was to name it Dark Lord, but trademarking proved to be an issue, so they settled for Dark Ring instead. No trademarking issues, no racial connotations, everything seemed to be in order. But then someone discovered that in the UK, Dark Ring is also slang for anus. so they eventually ended up naming the game Dark Souls. In Dark Souls 2, there's a character known as Laddersmith Gilligan. As his name would suggest, he is a character that specializes in building and selling ladders. Now, he does make a return in Dark Souls 3, but this time around he is a lot more dead. And to truly solidify the connection, his body is also surrounded by a large amount of broken ladders. The giant blacksmith from the first game also makes a return.
You, friend, you talk, I no talk, but happy.
He can be found in the exact same location in Dark Souls 3, but just like Laddersmith, he is now long gone. Rest in peace, old friend. Rest in peace. Soon after the release of Dark Souls 3, it was discovered that there's an unusual amount of what appears to be completely finished and functional content that is for whatever reason not available in the final game. Entire armor sets with finalized menu icons, descriptions, stats and everything are completely unused. Some examples are the armor set worn by Yorm the Giant, the mask worn by the Firekeeper, the armor set worn by the Man-Serpent Summoner, a white dress worn by the company captain Yorchka, a plow used by the Scarecrows in the first game, and a lot more. It's possible that these items were cut due to balancing issues, or perhaps they plan to activate them in an upcoming DLC. Before the release of Dark Souls, From Software announced a shield design contest which allowed fans to submit their very own shield designs to be featured in the game. The company received thousands of submissions, but only 4 were included in the final release: the Effigy Shield, the Sanctus, the Blood Shield, and the Black Iron Great Shield. The same type of contest was announced before the release of Dark Souls 2, with the 6 winning designs being the Phoenix Parma, the Sunlight Parma, the Watch Dragon Parma, the Wicked Eye Great Shield, the Rebel's Great Shield, and the Blossom Kite Shield. The Dark Souls franchise is set in a sort of medieval fantasy universe, so you would never expect to see any modern items in these games. However, soon after the release of Dark Souls 2, observant players discovered a quite severe anachronism. In the Grave of Saints, you can find this puddle of what is supposed to look like toxic waste. But if we zoom in, it's actually just a texture of a pile of recycled cans, with one particular Heineken beer can clearly visible. Good luck fitting that into the lore. It's obviously a mistake though, and it was later corrected in the updated version known as Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin. There's another texture applied to the pillars in the gutter, which seems to contain a modern-day rubber tire. However, upon closer inspection of the texture itself, it appears to be part of some sort of larger metal structure hidden underneath the surrounding rubble, so it's likely nothing strange at all. Nevertheless, the texture was later corrected as well. In the DLC Crown of the Old Iron King for Dark Souls 2, it's possible to encounter a boss known as Sir Alan. His appearance takes inspiration from the traditional armor worn by Japanese samurai, and he's wielding an excessively large katana. What's interesting about this is that if you manage to defeat him without taking any damage, a unique death animation will be initiated, which is very much in line with his samurai-inspired appearance. By driving his sword into his abdomen, he committed a ritual form of suicide known as seppuku. It was originally used by samurai to avoid being captured by enemies, as punishment for committing a serious offense, or because they had brought shame upon themselves. In other words, after being defeated so effortlessly, Sir Alan must have felt so ashamed that to restore his honor, he had to commit suicide. In all the Dark Souls games, there's a stat known as poise. The stat determines the character's ability to withstand enemy attacks without staggering. Being staggered in this case means that you're momentarily defenseless after taking a hit. In the first game, it was very simple. The higher the poise, the less you would stagger. In the second game, the function of poise was slightly altered. It functioned normally while performing an action like dodging or attacking, but if you take a hit while standing still or moving around, you would get sort of semi-staggered in that your movement speed would be reduced while still being able to perform any usual action. There are so many other related aspects like hyper armor frames, poise damage, regeneration, breakpoints, etc., but in the interest of time, this is the essential difference. There's been an ongoing debate over which system is better and what system should be used in the third installment. So now that Dark Souls 3 has been released, how does the poise system work? Well, it is certainly not the same system used in the first game, but as many players have reported, it's almost as if the poise stat has no effect at all. Some are even claiming that they have found a specific value in the game files that seem to suggest that the poise system is indeed deactivated. When this value is toggled from 0 to 1, a poise system similar to that of the first game is supposedly reactivated. But as the specific files and values has yet to be revealed and thus nothing can be confirmed, these claims should at least be taken with a grain of salt. Nevertheless, poise has definitely been toned down, as evident by just playing the game for yourself. I mean, in previous games, one of the major benefits of heavy armor sets was the increase in poise. But in the latest game, you seem to get staggered regardless. Who knows, maybe poise is the new pendant.
It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank.
We can only hope that From Software themselves comes out with an official explanation. Dark Souls is mostly known for its brutal and unforgiving gameplay. It's also known for its hopelessly vague and cryptic lore. There's no real narrative, but instead everything is ambiguously revealed through cinematic cutscenes, in-game messages, and character dialogue. These tidbits of information are then puzzled together by loyal fans to create the most comprehensive interpretations possible. But even so, there's so much we do not and cannot know. Miyazaki had this to say in an interview. There are a huge number of things that while present in the game, we make no attempt to explain to the player, and many more that they simply have no way of finding out. But I guess that's part of Dark Souls' charm. Much like real-world historians can never truly know what happened in the distant past, players can never truly know the complete story of the Dark Souls universe. As everything is passed down through legends and tales, it only makes sense for the mythology to be this fragmented. In preparation for the release of Dark Souls 3, publisher Bandai Namco announced a contest in which you had to make a video explaining the story of the first two games. The contest was aimed at players who had no prior experience with the Souls franchise, and the winner received $10,000. You know a story is hard to follow when people are awarded money just to explain it. If you do want to gain a better understanding of the lore, I highly recommend that you check out a channel called Vati Vidya. He is somewhat of an expert on the Souls franchise and has an extensive catalog of videos uncovering the many mysteries and secrets of the Dark Souls universe. Did you also know that Firelink Shrine was initially going